Hi everyone. Today I want to share a Christmas card using the Dove of Hope stamp set and coordinating dies. Beautiful bundle here. I really love it, and if you buy the bundle together you save 10%, so make sure you look for that bundle price, the bundle SKU number, and it's just a beautiful stamp set by itself. Really pretty. And the stamp images are gorgeous, and there are dies to cut them out, these little different birds here. And I think that the birds here can be used beyond Christmas as well. I think that would look even nice on maybe a beach card, beachy scene. You could color it differently so it's like a seabird. Anyway, it's really pretty, and I wanted to show what I'm working on. I love to watercolor, so my card is going to feature some watercolors, but first I wanted to point out some of these dies. You've got dies that cut out the images, but then you've got some additionals, and I want to show you what the additionals are. It's this dove here, so pretty, and you've got a body, and you've got an open wing. So if you wanted, you could have this bird be in flight by adding a second wing. You can have it be down here, up there, however you decide. And you can leave it open like this. I've seen a few cards where it's the open lacy wing, and I've seen it in some really pretty gold foil and silver foil. It's gorgeous. There's a stamp set in the catalog that has a globe. It's called World of Good, maybe. And so Peace on Earth, you can have a globe on your card somewhere if you wanted to. Really pretty. And so anyway, I just thought this was such a lovely die, and I wanted to use it on my card. If you want to fill in your wings, you can. So there's this piece here to layer behind. Let's say you've got some busyness going on your card, and you're going to place the dove down, and the laciness just kind of, it's too much. You can add this little solid wing behind, and you still see that really pretty detail, but you know, it's just not going to be distracting as much. And then there's a tail piece if you need that. And then there's a couple different little boughs of greenery. Here's one, and I didn't cut out the big one. So you've got this. And so it's just a really beautiful die set. And we're going to use that big one for this swap card that I'm making. And I also want to point out some of the things I'm using on here. I'm using some sequins, and this is from the winter sequin pack. What is it called? Snowflake sequins. And I'm not using, it has little snowflakes in here, and I'm not using the snowflakes. I kind of selectively picked the iridescent and silver sequins out of here just to kind of go with my silver embossing, and the iridescent kind of give off a purpley hue, so I thought that looked good. Anyway, so that's that, and I want to show you how to do this technique for the background. I think it's really fun, and it's easy, and so I like that. And this is embossed here in silver powder. I like this stamp set that it has an inside stamp, so I've got the inside stamp in here and some snowflakes too, so I'll show you that. And let's just get started. For this card, I'm using a piece of watercolor paper that's been trimmed down to 5 by 3 3/4. And I'm also looking for something round. Now, I found this in my craft room, and this is tear tape, and I think most of us crafters have a roll of tear tape. You might even have one of these older rolls of, this was the red tear tape. It's not tear tape, you had to cut it. Tear tape is so much easier. Anyway, so this is something that Stampin' Up sells, and a lot of us have this on our desk, so I grabbed that. If you don't have this, maybe you've got a circle die. It's easier to use this because it's easier to pick up, but I need a bunch of these, so I thought I'll show you how to do both. Okay, then you're going to use your aqua painters or water painters, and they come in a set of 3, and I'm going to use, this is the smallest one. I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use this big wash brush and the bigger of the 2 tips. And the colors that we're going to use are Balmy Blue, Misty Moonlight, and Highland Heather. Now, I've put ink inside my lids. I just kind of always have these little ink re-inkers. Whenever I buy a pad, I buy a re-inker, and so you just can drop some into your lids, or if you have one of those little watercolor palettes, you can put it on there. And what you want to do is have all that ready, and then you're going to grab your aqua painter, water painter, and get it good and wet. So I usually keep my Stampin' Scrub nearby when I use this because I want to be able to quickly go between colors. So you're going to get this wet by giving the barrel a squeeze. One thing I want to tell you is that the lids, when you fill them with water, they go the opposite way of what we're used to here in the United States. We do lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and these are the opposite. So some people were frustrated that they couldn't get the unscrewing to work, and actually got a couple questions on that, and that is how you do it. So you're going to get your circle area good and wet. I put it towards the top, not, you know, almost, and centered, and you're going to get it good and wet. You don't want this drying out on you when you're working on it. So you might need to give your barrel a squeeze to get this wet, and then you have to work kind of fast. So set that aside and grab your other aqua painter, and I like to start with the lightest color, which is balmy blue, and get it good and wet on here, and you're going to start just dropping it in, and see how it only goes where the wetness is. So then I give my brush a squeeze and pick up some of this Highland Heather and do the same thing. Isn't that pretty and fun? So then I'm going to clean off the Highland Heather by giving it a squeeze and pick up some of this Misty Moonlight and do the same thing. So it kind of wants to go where the water is, and it's not going to go anywhere else. And if you don't like how this is so symmetrical, you can kind of drop some of your other colors around and let them bleed into each other and get some fun shapes. And in between colors, this is why I like to work with this next to me, is I can squeeze my brush over this pad here and clean off between colors. And I'm going to throw in some deeper Highland here. Now it's starting to dry, so it's not bleeding as fast, but it is a little bit. And you get some fun blends in here. If you need to clean up a side here, you can. You can also pick this up and kind of let it bleed. So see how it's kind of staying where I wet that circle. So if I had tried to paint a circle freehand, I think it might have been a little wonky. So this is a nice way to get a circle. And I kind of want this image to look like an earth of some way, because I'm going to emboss down here Peace on Earth. I'm not using traditional earth colors, but you certainly could do blues and greens up here, and that would be fun. You have to be a little bit careful what colors you choose. Some colors, when mixed together, are going to turn into a mud. So things across from each other on the color wheel, like green and red, for example, which you might think are Christmas colors, if mixed together, they tend to look like mud. So be careful of that. I am just kind of going to go in and add some deeper colors. So it's really fun, I think. I think it's fun to watch what happens, and they're all going to be different, and that's kind of fun too. Okay, so I'm going to leave this be. I think it's fine just the way it is. And I'm going to set it aside, and then we'll do another one using that die in case you don't have any tear tape around you. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to use this die as my guide. And I'm going to grab this flat wash brush and give it a good squeeze. Now this is trickier because it's so thin, you don't have anywhere to put your fingers. So you're going to quickly get the center good and wet, and then draw your circle. Make sure it's good and wet, but not completely soupy, and then get it off of there. That's the trickier part because it's so thin, you don't have anywhere to grab it. And then, like I said before, you're going to grab your ink and let it go and work fast. Now, when it's really wet like this, your cardstock is going to start to buckle, which might cause for pooling in certain areas. So if you have to put it down, You could tape it down, but I don't bother. I usually just grab a block because they're on my desk and let it sit, and you can just let that sit and dry. As it's working its way here, you can look at it and say, do I want some deeper Highland Heather? This one was wetter than the first one, so it's really smearing around, and that can be fun. This works, the ink works a little bit like watercolor paint, but it's not quite, so it doesn't have exactly the same properties, but pretty close. And I like how you can see that it just kind of bleeds into each other. It kind of pushes the other ink away as you add it, but then after it sits for a while, it starts to blend together. But I wanted to have these be really separate, so kind of keeping an eye on that. If you needed to, you can grab a paper towel and put it in an area to kind of draw some of that water out if you wanted it to dry faster. So normally I can just go get myself a cup of coffee now and let it go, but if you wanted to dry it faster, you can just kind of dip a paper towel in here and drag up some of this color. Just to get some of the water off if you felt like you went a little overboard with the water. Okay, so you're just going to let that dry, and they're all going to be different, and you know, there's a little white spot there that I didn't get any water on, amazingly, so that's fine. Just leave it go, and I think it's pretty, so you can tip it if you want. Look at that little fun bleed going on, and that'll give you some little patterns, and then put it aside. Okay, so I made a bunch of those already for the swap I'm in. So let's put those away. So here are some others. See how they're all different, all kind of interesting. And now we're going to go ahead and layer our cards. Let's kind of clean up and give myself some space here. Alright, so I'm using a base of Highland Heather, which is kind of why I was careful where I put the Highland Heather. I wanted to make sure it showed up. And then I'm using a layer of silver foil sheets, and I want to show you some tips with the silver foil paper. Silver foil paper can be, it's a little more expensive than regular cardstock. You get 2 sheets for $5, 12 by 12. And so when you're making one card, no big deal, but when you're making a dozen, you're using a lot of silver foil paper, and most of it is covered. So you're going to put this on top, and you know, what is that? 90% of the silver foil paper is covered, which is kind of a bummer. So I like to take a die and cut out the center. And I look for things that are large. So this is the stitch rectangle dies, and I usually take out a center of that. Another one that's good is the Stitch So Sweetly rectangle, and you could use that and take out a big chunk. And that way you've got these panels which you can use again on another card. So you can do that, you'll have another layer, and then if you wanted to, you could take it even further. When I go to layer this one, for example, and I put a cardstock on this, then this center is going to be covered. So look for something smaller. You can just keep going until you run out of smallness, size. So for this one, I might choose something like a leaf. And then I kind of keep them in my little leaf bag. When I have little scraps of foil at the edges of my foil paper or edges of glimmer paper, rather than throw them away, I usually cut out little things, little leaves usually. And so anyway, this might have been cut out from the center. I could have probably cut out 2 or 3 of these and put them in my little leaf bag. So that is my tip for how to get the most out of your foil sheets. Okay, so what I'm going to do is cut out this middle and be right back. Okay, so I've got that ready to go. I'm going to emboss Peace on Earth on the bottom here. So let's do this one together. Now this is watercolor paper, which is bumpy. This is a embossing buddy. It just has a little bit of like powder, like chalk inside. It just takes static off of your piece here, so that when you're sprinkling your embossing powder, it just goes where you want it and doesn't have little bits of embossing powder sticking to the cardstock, and then when you heat it up, it's permanently melted there. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp Peace on Earth, bottom corner. And I'm using silver embossing powder. There you go. And then you're just going to heat that up. Let me put this, I've got my October lettering challenge here. Okay, now let's add these to our cards. So you're going to take your silver foil piece and attach that down. Okay, and now I'm going to put this one down. Now, because this was watercolored, see how it's bumpy, so I use a little more adhesive than I normally would on the back just to kind of help it lay flat. Normally I would go maybe top and bottom, maybe an X. Here I want to get all four sides, and then I want to even do the X, just because I really want it to lay flat. Okay, and I've already got some doves all ready to go, so I am going to I've already layered their wings, and to just glue them together, you're going to simply add a little bit of glue. I wanted one wing to be behind, like so. I thought I had some of these already put together, but I don't see any. And then I used dimensionals to kind of pop those up a little bit. Okay, and then I already cut out some of these little leaves here. And when I did this one, I actually added some adhesive paper behind some of our adhesive sheets. So this is already kind of a sticker, like that. And then I can go ahead and stick this right down, like so. And then as far as adding the sequins, I just took my liquid glue and I added just a few little dots, kind of randomly around. That was a little. And then I just selected some of these little sequins from the snowflake sequins pack. And there's some that are really pretty iridescent that pick up the purples. And then there's some that are silver. So kind of get yourself a variety. There's a star, I don't mind that. I was avoiding the snowflakes mostly because I want to use them on something else. The snowflakes would be fine too because I'm using this as a Christmas card. Thought I had another little dot somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay, now I have a tip for the inside as well. As you can see, I have a snowflake here, but I wanted it to be multicolored, like the kind of globe image that I've got going on. So I have an easy way to do that. And then we'll stamp the big stamp. So I stamped the words in basic gray, just a little softer than basic black, and right kind of top. And then I made myself an ink pad on my chamois. Now you can make yourself a little ink pad. We sell uninked spots, but I didn't want to use an uninked spot because how often am I going to do this little color? And they're small, so how often do I need it? So I kind of thought it would be nice to just have this temporary thing. And I've in the past made myself a little pad out of rolled up baby wipes or paper towels. If your baby wipes or your paper towels have patterns in them, sometimes those patterns transfer onto your stamped image, which is kind of annoying. So I thought, I wonder if this Stampin' Chamois would work. And it does. So you can see that it's pretty dirty. I chose a spot that's not so dirty, so I did it over here. And most of this dirty is from black ink. And this is, you know, it is going to stain a tiny bit, but here's where I did it earlier and it's not so bad. So I'm going to do it again and I'll show you. And you can get a lot of use out of it. So I put, this is Balmy Blue. And I only needed a tiny area because I'm just using this snowflake. This is the Highland Heather. And this is the Misty Moonlight. So I gave myself a little area here. And that is my ink pad. And then I just kind of stamped. And there you go. Now you don't want to, you want to try to always be in the same spot so that the blue and the purple, but you can turn it when you get here so that your, oh, all my navies are on top. I didn't mean to do that. It's like subconscious. And then because your chamois is right here, you might want to clean it off if you kind of lose track of where you're at, because you don't want it to mix here. So let's turn it a little bit. There we go. There we go. So I've got my little multicolored snowflakes. I think I need 2 more. So while I've got it, I'll do it, but I'll fast forward. Okay, and because it's something about being on this slightly damp chamois, I was able to just keep going, and I was able to do 5, and it still probably could go longer. And it's only just a couple drops of each color. And then I'm going to take this to my sink and rinse it out, and most of it will go away. So it's kind of nice, and you're not using up a bunch of paper towels. And I felt like when I used paper towels and baby wipes in the past, they dry up a little faster than the chamois. So I'm going to rinse this out, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. And I think it was this area here by the Trick or Treat. So yes, it stained a tiny bit, but not bad. And you know, your chamois is going to get stained anyway. So that is how I got these multicolored snowflakes. Pretty simple. So we'll slip a finished one into our card. So I hope you like it. I think it's kind of fun. I like watching the paint kind of go in that circle. And like I said, all of them are going to be different. Here's the one I let dry earlier, so it's almost dry. And some of the interesting parts might get covered up, which is kind of a bummer. But it depends on what you're doing with it. Maybe you're just putting words across it, and that might be fun. Anyway, try this technique. I think it's really fun, and I think it's easy. And it creates some interest in the background, and anyway, I think it's fun. I think I've said that enough. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll come back again. If you need a demonstrator in the U.S., I would love to be your demonstrator. I have a frequent buyer rewards program on my blog, bestpapercuts.com. Also, this was the color challenge in my newsletter this week. So if you would like to subscribe to my newsletter, if you go to my blog or my Facebook page, both under Beth's Paper Cuts, a pop-up will appear, or at least it should. If it doesn't, let me know. A pop-up will appear for you to sign up for my newsletter. And this was the color challenge for this week's newsletter. So if you would like to participate in a color challenge, you can show me what you did with these colors, Highland Heather, Misty Moonlight, Balmy Blue, and share them at Beth's Paper Cuts idea sharing groups. That's a group that you have to join, and then you can post things too, not just me. So that's kind of fun. You can post what you're working on. Demonstrators can join as well. A lot of demonstrators on that site. So you don't have to just be a customer. You can join that group and participate in those challenges. It's just kind of a fun little thing to do while we're all kind of separate and not being able to have so many gatherings during this COVID time. So anyway, I hope you like my card. Those of you who are in my swap, I hope you like my card. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.